Welcome everybody. So today I'm back and bringing you guys a brand new YouTube review, and this is going to be for the movie The Core. Now, The Core is a movie that I am personally a fan of, and this movie is one of the ones that I actually have been a fan of since I was in high school. This movie deals with pretty much the Earth's core stops spinning, and a team of researchers are sent down into the middle of the Earth to restart it. Basically, the Earth's core consists of iron and nickel, and somehow it's completely stopped spinning due to either natural forces or the government's own secondary system of starting and restarting the Earth's core being activated and used. This movie stars Aaron Eckhart, Hilary Swank, Delroy Lindo, as well as a variety of different cast of characters. This movie takes one of our main protagonists, Joshua Keyes, played by Aaron Eckhart, as he kind of learns from a government agency that a group of individuals, pacemakers, stopped working out of random. They later figure out that it's due to magnetic frequency of the Earth, and that the Earth's core has stopped spinning, which is also the magnetic sphere of the Earth's core is reducing the atmosphere of the Earth and affecting things such as weather phenomenon, such as electricity, which destroys the Roman Colosseum at one point in the movie. We also get a scene where it affects birds, and birds just randomly out of nowhere start throwing themselves into windows and stuff during a holiday vacation in Trafalgar Square in London. This causes the team to realize that there's something more going on with this storm and that they need to find a way to start and restart the Earth. So they basically concoct this idea to build a ship. The ship has a giant laser beam at the front of it so that it can cut through the crust of the Earth and go all the way down to the center of the Earth's core, as well as restarting it using nuclear devices. Once they're in the Earth's core, they'll drop these nuclear bombs, which will jumpstart in a timed way the Earth's core. This is probably one of my favorite films, I think, of all time. The disaster sequences are amazing. The dialogue between the cast and characters is awesome. Hilary Swank's character goes from this astronaut to trying to prove herself to the world by trying to be the first person down to the Earth's core and to restart it. Her character goes through a lot of development, which is a lot of things that movies today lack, especially with female characters. This is one of those characters that's presented as a strong female character, and she actually does a lot of heroic actions within this movie that feel like they could be done in real life, such as in the beginning where you've got the spacecraft that's kind of gone out of the course that they were supposed to be heading for their landing maneuver, which sends them into California, and they have to go through the LA River in order to stop, and eventually they do, just before hitting a construction on a nearby bridge. This movie is also really fantastic in that it deals with a lot of drama. There's a lot of back and forth bantering between some of the characters, Joshua Keyes and the scientist. This guy is kind of like a really famous physics researcher, and he's probably like the Neil deGrasse Tyson of this movie, and they go back and forth arguing about kind of how they handle the business of dealing with the situation of loss as well as dealing with the core. They don't really get along sometimes, and you see a lot of drama in there, which is another thing that you don't really see nowadays, is characters fighting and interacting and kind of how they deal with that type of behavior. And they're only kind of confined space, so once this ship starts losing the different parts of the ship, it becomes even more claustrophobic to the end, which I think was the point, because as they get closer towards the Earth's core, one of the other main scientists that invented the laser weapon and eventually ends up dying trying to sacrifice himself for the crew in a very heroic manner. I'm not going to reveal how he dies because it's one of those heart-wrenching scenes that when you see it's like, why did you do that? Like, I know why he did it, but like any normal person other than him would probably be like, what, screw this, I'm not going to do this, even though it completely saves the crew in the end. It's something that's so horrific that like you'd never wish that death upon anybody. There's also a scene where one of the guys kind of gets struck with a geode. They're inside this gigantic geode sphere, which is basically ice crystals and stuff, and one of the ice crystals, once the liquid magma from where they kind of entered the geode kind of starts bursting through, one of the main characters gets hit with like one of these little crystal geodes as it falls from the surface to the bottom where they're at, and this causes a whole bunch of chaos and stuff too. So this movie does a lot of really cool things with the disaster plot. They tackle some landmarks such as the Colosseum as well as San Francisco Bay Bridge. They completely melt that with this gigantic heat ray that kind of sweeps across the city, which I think was pretty sweet and unique at the time. There's also some light humor within this movie, especially with this character named Rat, who's basically this computer hacker who he's kind of like the funny person of the group. Like, he's always trying to chime in and stuff and make kind of whips and cracks at sort of the army generals and stuff and makes fun of them, which I think was done hilariously well. Him being signed on to the unit just because he wanted like Xenotapes and Hot Pockets, it's like one of the most ridiculous things that you're ever going to see. When you see him originally, he's kind of like this conspiracy guy, and he starts wiping away CDs and files of things that he's gathered through the government, and they hire him basically to control the flow of the internet of the information coming in about this kind of research unit that's going in the center of the Earth. And basically the way that they end up finding them in the end is during the beginning of the film, you later find out the orca whales are able to kind of track the ship when they're going down towards the surface to try and cut through. Originally in the beginning, this heat wave thing that they're using, or the thermal imaging cameras, basically is like a sonar beacon, and the whales kind of track the sonar beacon and kind of swarm around the ship in the beginning, and then this is later on brought back into the fold later on at the ending, where the government is looking for the ship after they kind of reach the surface of the Earth, after they jump-started their core, and then they find them that way, even though they've used a weapon that's kind of bad that almost literally killed the planet, as they call it, this being called Project Destiny, which is this weapon that the government kind of built that they can use to like create earthquakes out of nowhere, and basically a weather modification device. Which this is a device that can shoot a laser beam down to the Earth's core and jump-start it and stop it at a whim, and that's pretty much what they find out is the reason why the Earth's core stopped in the beginning. And one of the main characters is like, we need to use this as a weapon in order to use it for good this time, and maybe it will restart the Earth's core if we fail. Everybody knows this is a bad idea, because if they use it again, it could completely screw up the way that our planet, kind of moves and spins around and stuff in space. And this is not a good idea, because this could completely screw up everything on the Earth's surface. And this leads to one of the most funniest fights I've ever seen in the movie. But I want to be a little bit vague with this, just because I want you guys to go see this movie. There's a lot of really great actors in this. All of them do pretty darn good job. They all have really great dialogue. The special effects still hold up to this day. I think I've watched this like several times in the past year or so, and this movie still kind of holds up even with the aged effects. This movie is probably one of those movies that will probably go on to kind of be a cult classic, I think, as time goes on. This film came out in 2003, and I think that it still holds up to this day. So I would give this movie about a B. It's definitely not an A. There's definitely some flaws that kind of hold it back from being an A rating. There's some science in there that's really, really well done, and then there's other science that's really poorly done. I just think that's kind of the way that they wrote this, is because they kind of had to change things of how the planet works in order to kind of make it fit for the story that they're going for. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with them completely going, off the wall with stuff, as long as it makes sense with the film. And this movie, it definitely doesn't make sense, so I kind of understand. But I know that people that are fans of science will probably get kind of mad with the way that they kind of handle some of the science aspects of this movie. But if you're just going in this as sort of like, a different movie, a different like action adventure sort of disaster flick compared to what, Roland Emmerich usually does, then you're definitely going to enjoy this movie. And I like the design of the ship. I think that the different compartments, being able to eject those in sort of a disaster area is definitely a really cool idea, especially something that if they ever try and build something like this in the future, they should definitely kind of think about this. It's definitely one of those movies that kind of opened up my eyes as a kid of kind of like what's down below us as opposed to, what's above us in terms of what could go wrong in terms of, our Earth's core if it ever could stop. I don't know if it's physically possible for that to happen. I know there's a lot of people that say it's definitely a realistic possibility, or maybe like pole shift reversal type of thing. But either way, I give this movie a B. I think this is a really good watch. So if you're looking for a really fun movie for you and your family to watch, this is definitely one, and it's pretty much one for all ages. It's PG-13, so it's really not that bad. There's like a little bit of swearing here and there, but other than that, it's not too bad. So that's why I give this movie a B, and hope you guys enjoyed this review. I really love this movie, and as always, guys, rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.